Welcome to the Babies in Business Podcast. Join your hosts, Rachel and Avram Gonzalez, real-life parents and business partners. Each week on Babies in Business, Rachel and Avram create a space for entrepreneurial parents to find their own way. They'll dive into insights on topics like leadership, efficiency, self-awareness, budgeting, and human psychology as they nurture their family and build their business. Here's your hosts, Avram and Rachel.
When you're stuck, you're stuck. It does not matter what level you are playing at. When you feel stuck, you feel stuck.
Yeah.
And then the results show up in your life. When you take a step back and you look at where you've been last year, 2, 3 years or more, and you're in the same place, you have to admit you're just stuck. It's easy to come up with all of the reasons for why that's the case. Rachel and I spent a good chunk of the last 3 years talking about how difficult it is to grow our business while we have 2 very young children.
Yeah, we've spent the last 3 years of our first son's life.
What do you know? We've been talking about it on the podcast for like 90 freaking episodes. The purpose of it, of course, you know, you're here, you're a listener, is how to raise a family while building a business. Yeah. And so we continue to do that. And we had this incredible experience that we wanted to tell you about and invite you into as a part of this podcast today. You know, to be open with you, Rachel and I, our business has been stuck at about $250,000 a year for almost 3 years. And so I know that some people might hear that and be like, well, we need stuck, right? But that's just perspective. Right? Because there's other people that are, you know, have multiple 7-figure businesses and they feel stuck.
Right.
You know, at $5 million a year.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. It really doesn't matter what level you're at or what you're stuck in. When, like you said, you opened the podcast. When you feel stuck, you're stuck. It's perspective. It's how you feel about the thing. And that's it.
And it affects everything.
Yeah.
It's your money, your business, your family, your relationships, the relationship you have with your body, your fitness, your diet is all affected by the same energetics that are in place, the same programs that are running our life on autopilot.
Yeah.
In this podcast episode, first, we want to share with you the experience that we had. Not in this particular order.
Yeah.
Want to share what led to this. So we already shared some of the reasons why we were looking for change that you might be able to relate to. We're going to share some of the breakthroughs. Rachel's going to get an opportunity here as I interview her on her experience to share with you some things that I know you'll be able to relate to, even if your story is not the same.
Yeah.
And to round things out, we're going to invite you to step up in your life, become a leader in your own life, so that you can lead your family, your community, your friends, your team, people that depend on you, people that you don't even know are waiting for you to answer this call. So, I've been involved in personal development on and off for like 15 years, 20 years. I was really hooked on it. My first book that I read was The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Then it was like The Secret. You know, Oprah came out with The Secret in 2006, 2007, whatever it was. Or she premiered it, right?
Oh.
Somebody, you know, the other people made The Secret, and then Oprah put it on her book list. Became this huge thing. That's where it started for me. So I've read a lot of books and subsequently been to a lot of different seminars. I've been to everything from like a T. Harv Eker Millionaire Mind Intensive event all the way to like a spiritual breathwork ceremony, you know, where you're like panting for 90 minutes on the ground and like tripping balls.
I actually went with you to one of those.
Yeah. So I've done all of these things over the years.
Yeah.
And
so personal development is not a new thing for you
by any
means.
By any means. But what I will share here is it had been 5 to 8 years since I've gone to something that's personal development related. I've been investing in business coaching programs and other things over the years that have been helpful for us to get to where we are now.
Yeah.
But there was something inside of me that said, it's time for more. It's time for a tune-up. I don't feel like anything is wrong in my life, but I feel like there's definitely more.
And it could be that our youngest son is almost a year. So we're closer to the side of weaning him from breastfeeding and having more availability for my time. All sorts of things are coming up as opportunities and changes that have felt like maybe we were in a rut or we were controlled by our situation with our children, and maybe controlled is a bad way
Limited.
limited. Feeling a little limited with our time or energy, maybe even creativity, and more things to give to other endeavors.
That's right. Well, I had been wondering where that place would be that I could go touch up, because my experience has been a mixed bag of who you can trust versus who's in it for themselves that's teaching and guiding you through these seminars, intensives, retreats. And I knew that there was somebody in my network that was shepherding a new era of transformation through his programs at his company called Inspirion. So I knew that my friend Kayalik and I had been working on something that was helping people with a personal transformation. I didn't really know what it was. I couldn't really actually find much of it on the internet. And I just reached out to him. I just texted him. And he was like, dude, it's good to hear from you. When do you have a time to chat? Like, I'd love to tell you about Genesis.
And he called you.
And he called me. So I'm like pacing back and forth in the backyard. And by the way, part of the reason I reached out was not just the nudge that I had, but was this knowing that Rachel was very ready for personal transformation. I could see in her that the programs and the baggage of her past were coming up and they were ready for release. But we needed a method and we needed a place to do that. We needed a place that would be safe.
Yeah.
And legit.
I didn't know that. Here you are feeling this, hearing this call, this nudge, and you get off the phone with Kayala and you suggest that we go to this class, and you tell me the price and you tell me all this stuff, and you're like, we should do it. And I'm like, okay, because I do trust you and I am always willing to learn. I love to learn. I yearn to learn more.
Yeah. Kayla was very gracious with his time. He spent like 45 minutes with me telling me all about it, and knowing that I was somebody who's been through a ton of stuff like this. And I was like, you know what? Great explanation. I'm already in. I'm super glad that I know more about it so I can maybe share some with Rachel.
Yeah.
But we're in, we're committed. And so then we had to arrange childcare. It took us like 2 weeks to figure out childcare. And then we picked a date.
Yes. But we kind of moved heaven and earth to get that time taken care of with babysitting. It was a full day thing from morning hours, like 9 a.m. for us to 7 p.m. That is a full day of childcare.
3 days.
And we had to tap in 2 different people. We have our nanny, and then we had another lady that we've had watch our kids before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot. And then we had some play dates prior so that our children could get used to the other nanny that we would have in for just that fill-in time that our other nanny couldn't work those hours. You name it, we went through it to make it to this 3-day class.
Yeah, and it was all virtual.
3-day training, sacred experience?
I think those are all fair words for what we experienced at Genesis. So we were able to go to the same class, which I think was neat. I don't think it's necessary.
For me, it was wonderful. I really appreciated the fact that you got us there together.
Sure.
And one of the things, and I might be skipping ahead as far as like the timeline of how we want to talk about this, but I just felt really, really supported in that time. We're going to talk about some of the things that came up for me before class during that week. But for me, I knew that I could drop in, be present, and I didn't have to have a baby monitor. I didn't have to pay attention to if the nanny needed me or not. I am still nursing, so there were times that were designated that I would do that. But you told me if the babies need something or if the nanny needs something, I will step off and help with that.
Yeah.
And that was transformational for me. I just felt such gratitude. Those 3 days, I mostly every day feel gratitude for you because you're just amazing. But I really did feel that for you because I think I knew you saw the potential of what I could receive from this time, and you allowed me to drop in to actually be present. You know that I can get distracted. And if I've got two things, even though I'm a good multitasker, it's not the best when I'm trying to really be present and allow things to come up and allow myself to be present and vulnerable and all the things that I would want to be in a situation like that.
Yeah. I wanted to give you the gift of completely undisturbed, uninterrupted time, like a regular event where you leave the house and you go to it.
Yeah,
This one was a virtual event, right?
I
So,
definitely felt that.
so that was like one of the considerations. And when you don't give yourself that time for something like this, you miss out on your whole purpose for being there.
Oh, yeah.
We were prompted to figure out our purpose and intention with being there. That was pretty quick. We signed up for Genesis. We were supported by their staff in getting set up for the right time. There's plenty of times that we had to choose from. They helped us find the one that worked best for us. And then what we did was we followed through some of the initial training that they had available on
Yeah.
setting our intention and the things that we wanted to get out of it.
Yep.
This was all brand new to you at the time,
Oh, yeah.
but I think you were kind of like naive, eyes open. Like, so I know that you were playing full out from the
And
day it started.
trusting, yeah.
What was one of your intentions going in? You didn't know anything that we were getting into, but
I didn't. I had no idea. What's interesting about when we chose to do the training or the Genesis, I think training is such a small word to explain what I experienced. It was not a training for me. It was a truly sacred experience for me. I had started reading a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And basically the premise of the book is that we are such powerful individuals, so powerful that our thoughts become reality. And there were things like, looking up like a urinary tract infection. And then in the book, it has like the belief that's at the heart of why there's a problem in your body. I think it was like hatred towards men and especially like an intimate partner. And then what you could say as a mantra to yourself and change that. So I was looking at some of the things that I have experienced and just becoming aware that the things that I'm experiencing in my body could have come from things in my past. And I had kind of known that, but it was really revelational to me.
it was so
To
clear.
experience that.
You
It
were
was very-
looking. You were looking at some of these symptoms for things you'd experienced in the past, and you were like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." I was going through this thing at that time.
Yes. So what I felt myself doing was just stopping. And, I was reading the book and I'd gotten like 20 pages in or whatever it was. And it was like, okay, so say it's not real. Say that, just suspend your belief for a minute and pretend that if you changed your thoughts that it could change your life and just try it. And so I was already in that mindset of, okay, let's go. When we were there at the Genesis, and pretty much since minute 5, I was bawling because I felt like I had arrived at a place that would support me and would lead me and guide me and allow me to be aware, to become aware. By 22 minutes in, I knew that this was the right place. And I don't remember exactly the wording of my intention going into the class, the thing that we were led to do. But it was something around like weight loss and feeling good about my body and like in my body. I just had 2 babies within the last 3 years. I still have some baby weight. And then what I found was possible just within those first 22 minutes was over and above, far and beyond what I thought was even possible. It was like I had asked for a red rose and was given this field of beautiful flowers. I know that's a really probably terrible way to experience or to show you, but it just felt like I asked for something so small when everything was possible. And I knew that within 22 minutes of being there. And so, the intention that I had set going in, not really knowing what I was getting into, I felt a little foolish because it was so like kindergartenish. I felt like foolish maybe,
Or-
but simple, silly.
Yeah.
And I just knew that it would be so much more. I would get so much more out of this. It would change everything about my life. And I knew that within 22 minutes because I looked at the clock. I was like, wow, if I'm bawling like this, what's the rest of the weekend going to look like? So that was my experience. What were some of your intentions that you set when you came in?
Well, I just really wanted to get to the heart of why I feel like I've been shrinking back in certain parts of my life. In my 20s, I found myself sharing a lot, and that took form on social media.
Yeah.
So I was generating and creating a lot of content, videos. I was sharing a lot. I ended up speaking on stages all over the country.
You spoke at TEDx.
I spoke at TEDx. I led all these webinars and did all these trainings.
Well, you took 1 year of your life and you did videos every day that year, and you actually lost a lot of friends because of that, because you were so bold in showing up that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that was called Inspiraction. If you want a good laugh, go check out my Avram Gonzalez YouTube and check out the first video I put up there. Hysterical. Just to see the difference a lot of practice and repetition can make over time. So I just wanted to get to the heart of why I was so and have been so intimidated to put myself out there online again.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of what I wanted to get to. And I knew based off of what Kayla told me and what was shared in the first 20 minutes that we would get that, because a couple things were definitely going to happen this weekend. One was that you would become aware of the programs and the subconscious stuff that's running beneath the surface, oftentimes in opposition of the goals that we're trying to achieve. That's why I often feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. It's kind of like those goals, that other people have. We realize it's not our goal, and then, we've talked about that stuff.
Yeah, so like awareness is the first stop, and they talk about that frequently with Genesis. That's the point of going to Genesis, is to discover what are these programs running your life in the background. If you can identify them, then you can start to do something about them.
Yeah.
We also saw in those first 20 minutes that they were going to create an environment where that kind of change is possible. So if you've been in rooms where people are just kind of lecturing and talking at you for hours, it's intellectually stimulating.
Sure.
You get excited about it, you go home, but then no change happens. Because for human beings, change is only possible when you recreate an emotional state that is similar to or as intense as when your programs were created.
Yeah.
So what we were basically doing was learning content, learning from the instructor, going through different exercises and activities, either by ourselves or with partners or with small teams and groups, and living an emotionally charged experience for 20, 30 minutes at a time, where these things were uncovered and then they started to become reprogrammed. It was like the tip of the iceberg with what we were doing, but it was the most important part of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I knew we were in the right place, and why I knew that what we came there for was possible.
Yeah.
And that we were going to have that, and why it was a little bit different than things I'd been to before.
Yeah.
So Rachel had how many pages of notes after the event?
Like 35.
Okay.
And that's 8.5 by 11 sheets. And wow.
Yeah. And then I had, do you remember how many I had?
Like 3.
Like 3.
Although I am the note taker, you are not. There's a lot about my history of why I take so many notes.
Yeah. Well, and that's also just another plug
It could be
for
just me.
how different we are, and
Yeah.
I love that. So,
And the roles,
in the roles
like we talked about
in a previous
podcast where, right people, wrong seat. And we lead you through our adventures in the Jeep and how we took pictures and we were in the wrong seats. It's like, if we're taking notes for a podcast, I'm the one that should be taking those notes, really, because I can, and you help me organize them. So I'll take the notes and you'll help me organize them. So we come together and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
but we digress.
yeah.
My point was, in those 35 pages of notes, I know it's hard to pick like 1 or 2 things, but I know that there is at least one thing that you're very comfortable sharing in this context, because there was a visible transformation directly following the event.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to share that, or if there's something else you want to share too.
Well, I think there's a lead in here too, because the book that I've been reading, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, it was talking about the very thing. It was a perfect primer, and I haven't even read the whole book. It's like the first 20 pages. Basically, where you become aware of what's holding you back, what you believe, and what you hold deep, and and it's maybe hurt, whatever it might be, and then it actually controls your life and you're changing that. So what a great primer for this. And then for me, what happened was, so I've had there's a lot of stuff for me that came up, lots and lots and lots, but I've always felt like a burden. And during this sacred experience that was Genesis for me, I became very, very aware of, like, break that down a little bit more, be really specific. And what it is I am a child that lived in a family that had 13 people involved, mom and dad and 11 children. I'm 7 from the top. And I felt like I was a burden on resources.
By existing.
By existing. That's it. I was a burden on water, on food, on clothing, on housing. I was a burden. Basically, I functioned the way that I functioned. I mean, there was this pivotal time that I became very aware of where as a child, I recognized my burden and that I had a choice that I could take up less space in the world and alleviate the burden of my parents. And that is how I functioned from that moment on. So I took up less space in the world because of that really, really pivotal moment. And how that shows up for me was that, there's a couple of things. So I have trauma around work, going to work, because I started working when I was 8 years old
Doing
for
what?
my dad, encapsulating formulas that he made, he mixed. And then it was my job to go in, and I was in a room probably about the size of this. So 8x4 probably, maybe longer, maybe 12x4. And there was this really tiny window that was it was a tiny window, skinny and tall. And I remember myself, I needed to make so many capsules of the stuff, so many of this product and this formula and all these things. And I needed to do this. And once I was done with that amount, then I was done. Or sometimes it was time-based. And I remember looking out that window and just being so sad because there were other kids, my siblings or nieces, nephews, that were playing outside, and I just really wanted to be there. And I have trauma, I remember working and doing work and then getting to go play and then getting called back from play to have to come and fill this emergency order for somebody that, I felt very responsible for bringing in money for our family. And like I said before, where I felt like a burden just by existing, I also felt the real responsibility of I need to help bring money into the house. And if I don't do this, who will? And I was 8.
8.
And that was really what came out for me. And then, so I was able to see, okay, I have things that are holding me back. And then knowing that I was a burden on resources, then that brought more awareness to how I function in our business and how I don't ask for resources to be allocated for something that would be useful for me to do my job better and more efficiently and would benefit our family and our team and all the things that are involved. So, that's what came up for me in a nutshell.
Yes. So what you became aware of is this program, this belief, and then you look into your past and you can see all of the tendrils of
all of the places
that this belief ran your life.
Yeah.
And what was created as a result of that.
Yeah.
And so
I shrink back from so many things and I became small. And when there was an argument, I would just back away and not take up space and not defend myself and not advocate for myself. It showed up in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's what's so interesting about this experience we had was the awareness of a handful of programs. Like we both got very different things out of it, which is cool.
Yeah.
And you become aware of all the places it showed up. And it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And so behavior starts to change. There's also, I think, somewhat of a magical sense that you experience from a great event like this.
Yeah.
And what I saw in you was something very interesting.
Oh.
And also common. When you lean into something like this and you play full out, this is the result. This is what you have. It's night and day difference. There's our life before Genesis and our life after.
It's true.
So before Genesis, with our business, we have gone through like 3 different project management softwares and tried to get everything systematized in this really sexy automated way. Like, we know a ton of other agency owners that have this all in there, but it never clicked for us, right? I'm kind of
And when
savvy.
we say yes, or it never clicked for us, it's me, because I'm the project manager. You know, you'd come in as support and lend a hand, but it's really me that would be running the show.
Well, and what I was going to share is that I have an idea about it, and I'm used to the technology, right?
Yeah.
And I would contribute to that. You're the one who's very organized, process-oriented, tasks, breaking it all down. So this whole organization side is like should fit squarely around Rachel's strengths.
Yeah.
But it was like she could not get it.
Yeah.
And so when we would be working on it, there would just be like just general like frustration or a shutdown that I would witness in you. And this was all before Genesis. So in the last like 6 to 8 months, maybe a little bit longer than that, we actually reset everything. We put it all in spreadsheets.
Yep.
Which is great. It allowed us to get really clear on our processes. But as our business has grown in the last 6 months,
we just have too many processes that have too many pieces, moving parts, and too many people that touch it.
Right. So it's like, well, we have to embrace these systems, these project management systems.
I had not come to that realization before Genesis.
Correct.
I was spreadsheet all the way.
Yeah, and like even though it was starting to,
it was very frustrating.
Very frustrating. It was hard for you
Visibility
to keep up
was
on
hard.
it. The more work that we had, the more work that you had, it didn't actually get easier for you to manage it.
Well, for project management, sometimes it was me working in the beginning of the day. Our schedule is 9 to about 1 when our babies wake up, or the nanny leaves and they could wake up, and then we're on. And then sometimes I'd have to come in later in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so after Genesis, it's been less than 6 business days, and Rachel has moved the entire workflow and all of the projects and every single deliverable and task that is currently in our pipeline into Asana in a workable, organized, functional way.
Yep.
And it's like, what happened?
Well, for me, what happened was that on a very real level, I was pretending that I didn't know and someone knew better than me, and I would defer to the person that knew better. And that, you know, I grew up in a very unorganized home. It was filthy. And when I mean filthy, I mean think hoarders and think of piles of junk and garbage here and garbage there and nothing's taken care of. And I was always trying to squirrel things away, and I had a way of organizing. So I thrived on organization, but I wasn't given many tools or examples of organization. So I think that there was a lot of trauma that was around organization in general and really owning the strengths that I had that are just innate in me. And over the last week, it was very clear. I knew exactly how we would put it into Asana. When you suggested it, because I think you had suggested it prior to Genesis.
Yep.
And then I thought about it after that, and we went through Genesis, and then I knew exactly how on the other side it would happen. And you came home from like meetings one day, and I told you what I'd done, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I'd pretty much taken everything. There were some processes that we needed to work through a little bit, but because they were in a system like Asana that we have, it became very apparent what needed to be worked on. So I also came out of Genesis with a very clear picture financially of what I want for our household and our business. And I know that I was the person holding us back for the last however long we've been together. Mm-hmm. I joined your business in 2020, the end of 2020. And I have been on a journey, a long journey of self-discovery and working through my past and seeing all the things that have held me back. And I've done a lot of work, but I received so much more benefit from just these 3 days in Genesis than I have received since the last, 2018 is when my life really, it's a mark in my life where things changed, where I I told the universe I wanted something different. I got a divorce that year. I left Montana. I grew up in New Mexico. I came back here. I was willing to be homeless. I was willing to be penniless. I was willing for anything to be possible, to be away from my ex and have someone treat me the way I treat people. So there were a lot of things that happened for me, and I am so excited. So we want to grow our business within a year. So by May of next year, we want to be $1 million business, and we have some things that we want to pay off, some quite large things. And with that goal of $1 million, we will be able to meet those goals and then some. And we have a bright future. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, we closed like $50,000 worth of deals within 72 hours of Genesis.
We did.
And put a couple more people in the pipeline that we're talking to now. So another like 150,000 in contracts, I think, that are possible. And
I think that you have more confidence in selling because you know that when we get more people in, we're going to be able to put all of the things that we do for them into our system. Everything is supported, and we can grow and grow and grow. One of the things that came up for me of like what I would like my future to look like is I saw very clearly that we had 10 plus employees and we had 100 plus clients. And I know that that's possible for us in our future. And I'm willing to be that project manager that growth and that size business needs.
Yeah. You know, I realized that we were burned out.
Yeah.
Like being stuck creates burnout, and there's a lot of reasons why we get stuck, but it's also easy as an entrepreneur to just kind of put your head down and work and not acknowledge that you're burned out or not feeling it.
Yeah.
And so it's like on the other side of Genesis, looking back, I'm like, oh, we were burned out.
Yeah.
So even though we weren't spending hours and hours and hours toiling in the business, we were burned out because we could feel the stuckness, and that every step forward was going to be one step back, and we'd be right back at the same, just kind of kidding ourselves that we're moving forward.
Right.
And so I think that anybody that's listening to this that's experiencing stuckness and burnout, you don't need a new strategy to grow the business. You don't need another business coach or thing. What you need is a deeper look and some time. Give yourself some time and some assistance to look at what's actually holding you back. And it doesn't matter what level you're playing at. You know if now is the time. You know if now is the time.
Yeah.
I've been to a ton of these things. What made Genesis different was that the class didn't sink to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
You go to a lot of these things and there's some needy person hogging the microphone, getting all the time from the facilitator.
Yeah.
That didn't happen because of the way that it was set up.
Right.
Okay? The people that were there were ready to play full out.
Yeah.
And you were able to engage at the highest level with the content and the experiences that were presented. And how you go into it determines what you get out of it. Like, there are some activities and things that they have you do that are pretty uncomfortable.
Yes.
Uncomfortable because it's just like the general sense of like discomfort, with something. And there's also like the uncomfortable of, this seems silly. This seems dumb.
Yeah.
This seems this or that. And I'll tell you that one of the activities that I was thinking, this is a little hokey. This is a little cheesy. I felt those thoughts come up. I abandoned them right away because I said, I know what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Let's just roll with it. I have never done something quite like this. Let's just play full out and see what happens.
Yeah.
And it was like every time that I did that through the Genesis weekend, when I felt uncomfortable, I got out of it a whole bunch of stuff that I had been closed off to 15 minutes prior. When I made that decision, I'm not going to let this get in my way.
Yeah.
So all of the I already know this. I've already done this. You have not been to something like Genesis.
Yep.
Okay? Something happened at the end of day 2 that if you talk to anybody who's been through Genesis, completely changes your life.
Yeah.
There is before the end of day 2, and there is your life after the end of day 2. And it was through that experience, and it was so sacred. I cannot share with you what happened because I would blow the opportunity that it is for you.
And we agreed not to share.
Absolutely. Nothing about
It's
it.
that important.
Let me just tell you this. We are getting matching tattoos because of something that happened during Genesis.
Yes.
Okay? Again, I can't tell you why, because it could blow the surprise for you.
Right.
And it could inhibit the level of transformation that's possible for you.
Yeah.
I've never had a tattoo in my life. I can think of a million times I said I would never. And when we came out of it, it's like, Rachel, we got to do this.
You were the one that suggested, and I'm like, I want one too. Let's do it together.
Let's do it together.
Well, and you know what I found was so interesting with the experience is I was watching people around me visually on screen and verbally saying, I wonder what we're supposed to learn from this. I wonder what we're supposed to learn from this. And I'm in my head thinking, let me learn whatever it is that I can here. Like in the background, you know, just being really open, vulnerable, available, and letting things land. And I mean, we've already talked about one facet that has changed. It isn't even all of it. There's so much more, and I can see us having a lot more episodes about this.
Sure.
So I'm really excited to have shared this with you, and we're excited to talk more about it at later episodes.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a link in the description of this podcast episode. So wherever you're listening to it, you should be able to find the link that takes you to the show notes. And in there, we'll have a link for Genesis. So here's what I'm going to tell you. First, it is not that much money.
Yeah.
Some people are going to go to this link and they're going to go, oh my God.
It's worth 10, 20, 30 times what you will pay. Or more, actually, infinitely more.
And so for those of you who have some sticker shock when you see it, I want to challenge you first and say, and I'm going to bring this up for you, it's not that much money.
And what program is telling you that?
What program is telling you that? Who taught you that?
Yep.
Okay, right? And second with that is, if that's your reaction, that's exactly why you need to go.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are much bigger than that amount.
Yeah.
Now, some of you after hearing this are going to go to the link and be like, oh, man, they made it sound like it was going to be this crazy thing. Right? And the thing that's going to come up for you is not the money. It's going to be the time commitment.
Sure.
You know, you're going to be tempted to answer texts and stuff during this 3-day sacred experience. Don't.
Yep.
You're going to be thinking, well, maybe I can take this time to drop my kids off at school just that Friday.
No
and
way.
It'll be fine. No.
Worst thing you'd ever do for yourself.
You have to dedicate this time to yourself in a way that you maybe haven't done in a long time.
Right.
And cut out everything else and make it all about you.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be your challenge in your journey. All right. And then there's some people that won't even go look.
Right. Because maybe you think that you've got it all set.
And maybe now isn't the time. But I would also challenge, if you had a knee-jerk reaction to it, to say that I'm all good. There's probably also a reason that you should take a look and maybe just consider it. Yeah. At least be open.
Right.
Possibility. So that's our call to you. When you go and you register, I would love for you to reach out to us. You can email us at hello@babiesandbiz.com and just let us know, I registered. Tell us which weekend dates you went to. We'd love to hear about it after your experience.
Yes.
Okay? And celebrate you on the beginning of a totally new life, family, and a reality you never imagined before.
Yep.
So that's what we have for you today.
If you haven't liked our podcast or subscribed, you can do that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
We'll have more that we'll share in the time coming up about our experience.
Yep.
We want to leave you with the opportunity to do something about your life, to unstick yourself, to play at a bigger level than you ever have before, because your family, your team, and your community is depending on it.
Yeah.
That's all for today.
Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Babies in Business podcast. Who do you know that would benefit from hearing this episode? Share it with them and post about it on social media. You can find the show notes for this episode, free downloads, and connect with the rest of the community at babiesandbiz.com. We'll see you next time.